Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast, Reel It In. Today we're going to be talking about the final chapter of Season 2, The Mandalorian. Today with me I have, as almost always, Connor, and a new guest, my mom, call her Julia.
Hello.
She's been a Star Wars fan since day one, so
Yes, I
getting her input will be interesting. So, what did you guys think overall? The whole season.
Fastball. Wow, okay. I'll go first. I'll keep it brief. I like the first season more. G- Given the conversations that we've had over the last, 6 episodes, at least that I've been featured, we've talked about pacing overall, and a lot of it is just kind of messy. So I think I like the cohesive feel, the more structured feel of season 1, although season 2 had a lot of pretty cool moments. I just think it was a little messy.
Julia.
I agree that season 2 showed too many tangents, and we know Mando had a singular task. But every time he was about to get one step closer, he had 3 steps back. Well, you need to help me with this, and I need you to go here, I need you to go there. Very frustrating. So I agree. However, overall, I have enjoyed season 1. I have enjoyed season 2. I am worried about season 3.
Yeah, I agree with Connor. Season and you a little bit. Season 2 was all over the place. I hope they don't continue that for season 3, because if they do, I feel like the storyline that they're trying to tell won't get told until like 4 seasons later. So I think they need to stop separating everyone. I think Din needs some continuous co-stars, because right now it's kind of just him. And I know it's called The Mandalorian, but still. So we'll see what happens season 3. I hope they stop the little side stories, because I kind of want like a cohesive storyline now, even though we're getting a bunch of other spin-off shows.
I will have to say, getting right back to the finale, I am going to speak from the perspective of being one of the old timers who've been here since day one. I am one of the original Star Warriors. I have certain strong opinions about how things should be, how Jedis should be. There was no doubt that Luke Skywalker was the appropriate Jedi to come and rescue Grogu, in my mind. Yes, we can talk until we're blue in the face about the technology, and quite frankly, I don't care. All I know, it was Luke Skywalker. And more importantly, it was the Luke Skywalker that we have all been cheated from seeing. And I think it gives a resurrection to the real Jedi that he was, that he did not get to be in 7, 8, and 9. It's retribution. It makes me want to thumb my nose to Rian Johnson and say, this is the Luke Skywalker we all deserved. And I think just that alone, I just was reduced to tears. Absolute. And then, of course, the way, the ending with the baby. I mean, what parent just cannot feel that pulling of the string and the heartstrings? And I was pretty much choking on my tears. And more, the thing that worries me is we know from history that we don't hear of Grogu, and we have all knew what happened to the Jedi Academy. And I can't not bear the thought that our little fella would succumb to such a brutal death. So I'm going to pray that my prediction is that maybe he will one day become the Mandalorian Jedi. And I'm going to hold on to that thought so I can sleep at night. And then very lastly, Boba Fett. I'm going to go on record and say I have never been a fan and never will be a fan of Boba Fett. And how in the world is this going to exist while the Mandalorian exists? And there's too much talk about, does Boba replace Din? I can't even bear that thought because I have an emotional investment in Din as well. So there it is.
Well, we do have a few years before Ben Solo turns to Kylo Ren, so we'll see what happens in that time span with Grogu. But in terms of Luke, it's fine. I guess it's fine that he was the one Jedi to like come and get Grogu. I just kind of wish it happened in like a different manner. So like in terms of like writing, you know, you can get your I've said this before, you can get your characters into trouble through like plot convenience, but you shouldn't get them out of trouble through plot convenience, and that's kind of what I felt like Luke was. I think it would show the characters like abilities a bit more if they had to get themselves out of the dark trooper situation instead of Luke like flying in on the X-wing and just kind of like saving them all. So I feel like Luke should have showed up kind of when like everything was said and done, and kind of like very like last minute. I know everyone wants to see him like in action and everything, but I don't know. Also, like, I know this might be because of the technology, but I feel like Luke's character was very wooden. Like, I feel like that's not how Luke would act when taking away basically a child from his, well, I guess family, you know. He's very like, Luke has like a lot of heart. And I didn't see that a lot in this episode.
And he did kind of look like a Snapchat filter.
Yeah, his mouth barely moved. You could have used Sebastian Stan, because he looks a lot.
Or even so we were talking about this earlier, and his stand-in, like, looks enough like Luke Skywalker that, like, you could even, and, like, eyes, and we've seen this with the pandemic and, like, everybody wearing masks, is that, like, eyes are a very distinguishing feature. So I think that was a place where I think it would have been the hardest, but like makeup goes a long way. You could still probably touch up like the eyes, or even keep the hood up and just kind of go from there, because it kind of bothers me, and I know it shouldn't, and I should be grateful like everybody else that we got this really awesome version of Luke Skywalker, not his grumpy Uncle Jake who lives on an island and throws stones at birds.
I wonder how Mark Hamill feels about this Luke, because I know he's not happy at all about the sequel Luke.
He probably loves it.
Probably, because I know he hasn't spoiled anything on his like on his social media, but I know he seems very happy about it. So
well, tomorrow's Mando Monday, so that seems to be when everybody's like, okay, it's cool to talk about it because it's been 3 days. So like we're recording this on a Sunday, but we'll probably post it when we normally do. But you know, it's still it's hush time.
True, yeah. So I also feel like a couple of contradictions have happened in this final. Like, so you spend like 2 episodes ago, you spent like the entire episode trying to prove that Boba Fett is a real Mandalorian. Like, you had his chain code, his like physical action and stuff like that. And then in this finale, like, you have Bo-Katan claiming that like Boba Fett is not a Mandalorian, and even his father wasn't really one either. And because like she made a point to say that like Boba Fett is not actually Jango Fett's son, he's his clone. So that would basically mean that every clone would be a Mandalorian.
Which I agree with Bo. I think she has a great point. Mm-hmm. So Jango is a Mandalorian, I guess technically, or by creed or however that works. I still don't even know. I think he was
given the armor because he helped in the Mandalorian Civil Wars, and whoever Jaster Mirel like gave him the armor for helping, and he was like, "Hey, you're an honorary Mandalorian now."
Yeah, so by creed that makes him Mandalorian, but that brings the issue with, is a clone.
Can a clone be actually a bona fide Mandalorian? Well, the same question is, can a foundling be a bona fide Mandalorian? Because that talks back to Din, and it also goes back to Grogu as well. So there's a lot about the true heritage of who and what are really Mandalorians.
Literally the race of being Mandalorian. So like you were either born on Mandalore, you were raised on Mandalore, or like your heritage, like your bloodlines trace back to the original, you know,
clans.
Yeah. So I think that's something that still has to be fleshed out and has been to quote Jeremy Johns, has been a retcon was retconned by another retcon, so it keeps like undoing itself, and it's just getting a little confusing, I think, because I thought at some point we had an understanding of what a Mandalorian, like what makes a Mandalorian, and who is Mandalorian, who is not. So I have to also side with Bo-Katan on the fact that Boba is not Mandalorian by the virtue of him being a clone, even though he's not like altered like the rest of them. He didn't have like that weird accelerated growth. Yeah. But he's still a clone of Jango Fett. He wasn't a child of Jango Fett, I assume. Because to your point, that would make all the clones Mandalorian, which...
So that I feel like that kind of goes back to what... And I think maybe that, like, they're trying to actually make that point in the show, like what really makes the Mandalorian, because it kind of goes back to what Mayfeld said in the previous episode when he's talking to Mando. He's like, well, like, you took off your helmet and traded it for another one, so, like, what exactly does it mean to be in your creed? Like, can you just not take off, can you just not show your face, or, like, or just, like, you can't take off the actual, like, Beskar helmet kind of thing. And he's like, who are you, basically? He's asking, like, man, like, Din, like, who are you? Like, do you know who you are? Kind of. I wonder if, like, I'm sure they'll keep Din as a being, like, you know, a Mandalorian, because he has won the dark saber from Moff Gideon, which is going to cause a conflict in season 3 between Bo-Katan and Din.
Yeah, I would like to see season 3 move towards that storyline. The backstory of Mandalore. We need to hear a lot and see a lot more history. We kind of know, but it would be more exciting to get some updated details, and moving towards that ultimate confrontation between Bo and Din. And you know, I don't know, you know, how far the creators think they're going to take the Mandalorian. Do they want to take it to 5-6 seasons? Or, you know, or even back to Boba Fett. I mean, if they call it the book of Boba Fett, you know, okay, could we give him 1 season? Fine. Give him 1 season, and then, for God's sakes, write him off once and for all. Okay? Because who the hell comes out of the pit of a Sarlacc pit, for goodness sakes, okay? I don't care who you are. That's just ridiculous. Somebody needs to explain that to me. But there it is.
I'd like also more detail on exactly how Bo lost her saber to Moff Gideon.
Yeah, they glazed over that completely, and that was like it's kind of like to compare it to the prequels. It was like sorry, not the prequels, the sequels, like with Rey's parentage. Like that was the question, like who are Rey's parents? And this one, it was like, how did Moff Gideon get the Darksaber? Mm-hmm. Like what confrontation did he have with Bo-Katan? And they didn't even explain it. He was just like, this Darksaber once belonged to Bo-Katan, and now it is mine, and I have power over Mandalore. Assume that I know everything.
Well, I think, again, that would be a great backstory, a great flashback, where it's being told as the memory of Bo-Katan telling that story and being used as a flashback. I think we deserve that kind of visual as well.
I agree.
Yeah, also because based off what we've seen, I'm surprised that Moff Gideon was able to, like, get the one-up on Bo-Katan. But, I don't know, some people, I think that now since Din has the Darksaber, he'll be the one to unite Mandalore. But I kind of think it has to be Bo, because she's from Clan Vizsla, which is, like, the first, like, Jedi Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. He's the one who had the Darksaber originally, like, it was his. And it sort of like was passed down through the clans until it kept getting stolen by their people. So I feel like she has to get it back somehow.
Because she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. But I'm also interested because, like, if you believe in the storyline of the Darksaber, she's going to have to fight him somehow, but she also can't fight him like she has to actually, like, defeat him. Not kill him, but, like, you know, a real defeat.
I guess. So that's... I mean, and we can segue into that point, because I still feel it's kind of weird considering the way that the Darksaber actually has, like, been handed down. So in Rebels, and this is where I think it's the lines are starting to get a little strangely blurred between what is what, like what is PC in the sense of, like, the story, because in Rebels, Ezra just takes the Darksaber from Maul, and nobody really, gives a like, they don't make a big deal about it. Like, you can't do that. Like, he technically won that in combat.
Well, didn't he find it in Dathomir?
He found it on Dathomir, and he took it from Maul. But Sabine didn't make a big deal about it in terms of, like, Ezra, you can't do that. That's against Mandalorian code. Like, that's against the...
Which is why I think this is very personal. Well, I think the situation with Bo is her pride. This is very personal, and I would like to see and understand the reason why. And I think, as my daughter has alluded, we need to know how it was taken, because I think it's extremely personal. And before we segue into all those conversations, because I know there's a lot to be said for that, I do have one more thought. And I think that we also, as an audience to The Mandalorian, need to be told, we deserve to find out who took Grogu away from the temple, and where had he been hiding, and how did he get into the hands of those criminals. That has to be a big episode right there.
I'd also like to know how Moff Gideon even found out about him in order to use his DNA or his blood.
And I mean, what makes him so special from any other Jedi? Like,
Well,
he's been around, but he's been around for a while. He's old enough that, like, there was Darth Vader, there was Anakin Skywalker, there was his own emperor. So so far his motives is just to keep the Empire going, is to resurrect the Empire. But, like, that's kind of it. It's very shallow, it's very hollow, and I know that reflects a lot of real world things, like real world events and shallow motives, but it still is just very
But we need that backstory, because that answers a lot of questions. We just need that backstory.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to be until they bring Grogu back into the show?
I'd give it 3 episodes tops.
3 episodes?
Yep.
I think they'll maybe go like at least half a season. Okay, I guess that is 3 episodes or 4 episodes. But
Yeah, it's 4 episodes, because each one is, unless they extend season 3 or go beyond season 3, which I miss Star Wars when it was kind of one thing at a time instead of like 5.
yeah, I think this whole online streaming thing, especially because of COVID, like, you can't really go out to movies or anything, safely right now. I feel like they're trying to take advantage of this streaming platform, and I think it's actually going to change the way most media is consumed, because not only Star Wars, but like Pixar, actual Disney, like the actual Disney movies, like princess movies and stuff like that, Marvel, like, they're all coming out with so much stuff, and they're all coming out very consecutively. Like, for Marvel, like, we're getting one TV show for 2 months, the next 2 months is a new TV show, so we're gonna have new material from Marvel basically for the whole year.
And it's not like you can skip it either, because at Investors Day, Kevin Feige said, like, you have to follow all of these. They are all very inclusive, which, I mean, is great in terms of storytelling, and like I've said before, I give them credit. They do a better job at that. But at the same time, it's so much. Like, it's sensory overload. Like, I love Star Wars, but sometimes there's too much Star Wars. I love Marvel, but sometimes there's too much Marvel. Like, it's sensory overload.
Yeah, like we don't have time to just continuously sit at our TV screens or computer screens and just keep watching stuff. Like, people have lives that they have to lead.
Like,
This is a business. Lucasfilm is a big, big business. Disney's a big, big business. They've lost a lot of money. So yes, they're going to start throwing everything on live streaming, because they need to bring back advertisers. They need to bring back money. I agree. It is overload. And I also agree, leave Star Wars where Star Wars was and start creating your own storylines. However, though, I do agree that we did need Luke Skywalker, and we did need to see that magnificent fight. All right, so thank you for giving that to me. Now I'm satisfied. Now I can wash my hands and move on. But no, it's information overload, and then they're threatening dangling the carrot by saying that's all climatically all going to blend in at the end. All right, so what do we got? We got Ahsoka, we got possibly Ezra, then we got Sabine, and then we got Bo-Katan, and we got Din, and then we got Thrawn. I mean, for goodness sakes.
And Kara, don't forget her little show.
Oh, Kara and the Republics and holy moly.
And now Boba.
And now Boba.
Like this is the kind of stuff where I actually really enjoyed it as a game or as like a book or a comic, kind of how it used to be. Because really, Mando has opened up a couple of explanations for like how the sequels went, which I have, so many different thoughts about the sequels and the structure of the sequels. And I like that it's trying to explain that, but at the same time, it's doing that in little like bite-sized chunks. Like it's not like it would have been really nice in the way that the Clone Wars like totally tied together episodes 2 and 3, and then beyond that, it felt so much more structured that way, and that's why I think I like how that like one at a time and just like really hyper focusing on like one or two projects max. Like even Rebels, Rebels obviously it was definitely centered towards a certain demographic, and there was I think a lot more red tape than there was with Clone Wars, but it still explained a lot in between 3 and 4, and then with Rogue One, like it was still like so incredibly inclusive, whereas like Mando so far has been like it's kind of shaky. And then you have Boba Fett. Like what is Boba Fett going to contribute with the rise of the First Order? Where the hell Snoke came from?
Yeah. I know that I think they even said that Mando is supposed to hint at the rise of the First Order, but so far they've only spent like 2 minutes in one episode sort of hinting at that.
Well, it's all been Empire.
Yeah. So, like, when does the Empire actually die and then the First Order rises?
Yeah, because they're not they should not be the same thing.
Well, speaking of villains, I was disappointed with the writing of Moff Gideon so far, because he kind of seems like a wimp, or the child that's is acting bigger than they are, which leads me to believe that he is not the real villain of this story. I think it might be Thrawn or somebody else that we haven't been introduced to yet. I'm hoping it's Thrawn though, because I haven't read the new books. I've read the old Legend books.
You gotta read the new ones.
I know. It's on my list to read the new ones. But he was a really interesting character, and I don't think Rebels really did him justice, to be honest.
There's more in the books. There's
Yeah.
more in the books. I've only read part of one of them because I have no attention span. I also don't love Thrawn as much as you do.
I don't love him, but like I think he's interesting. Like he just knows people's weaknesses based off of the art that they make. Interesting.
It's like they're still staying true. They've just kind of watered him down a little bit.
Yeah. He was kind of like, he was a little frustrating in the books as well, because he knew like every move that they make. And like when you think that they're going to like pull the wool over his eyes, he's like, actually, I know what we're going to do the whole time, which I don't think is realistic. Like people make mistakes no matter how brilliant you are. But
I mean, he did. He got sucked out into wild space with Ezra and the Purgle.
Purgle. Oh yeah.
Purgle, sorry.
Another thing that bothered me about Moff Gideon was when he tried to off himself. Not necessarily because that may actually be triggering for some people, but because like
It's cowardly.
Yeah, but the situation you're in isn't that deep. Like they're keeping you alive, obviously. So they're not going to torture you or anything. And 2, a true villain would have smirked at his loss and found a way to escape and or trick your enemy into escaping. And I'm just disappointed with him.
Well, could he? I mean, he had the look of terror when the Jedi was approaching. And then he saw the Jedi demolish his troops like tin cans. All right, I can't imagine that doesn't affect him. Keeping with all of you in agreement that he's probably not the strongling that he thinks he is.
Do you think he knew that it was Luke?
I don't know if he knew it was Luke Skywalker, but I think he saw with great shock just how powerful that Jedi was. And I think maybe he was afraid he did not want to be succumbed to interrogation by the Jedi. And I keep wondering if that was his angle, because you got to keep seeing it. Look at the look on his face. He cannot believe what he's seeing.
I think it's funny also that like throughout all these years, you know, prequels, originals, and especially the sequels, like the Empire, the First Order, they always rely on technology, and they like their technology is pretty advanced compared to like the Republic and stuff, and yet they always lose.
It's that wit. And there was an interview with George Lucas and James Cameron, and they were talking about it and the allegories between the Vietnam War, and even with the prequels, it was very anti-Republican kind of. Like I know George Lucas did not like the Bushes. I'm not going to get too political with it, but like it's when you figure out what he's comparing it to, it's pretty obvious at that point. You're just like, wow, I didn't see it. Like you have a very Jedi realization. You're like, it was right under my nose. A lot of that was that they're witty, that they have this like spirit. They use their brains in their hearts, not, you know, just one or the other. Whereas
Right.
the Empire, it's very just like brain, but it's very foggy.
It's also arrogant. The Empire is always arrogant. And you know what? As a sidebar here, it's the same concept you hear even with the Harry Potter stories, right? You've got, you know, Voldemort and all this incredible skill base and treachery, but yet it was the love of the mother, the sacrificing love of the mother, and the love they have for each other, and the fact that they're all working towards humanity. The simple human thing always wins. And even with Poe, at one point, I can't remember what movie it was, probably was Rise of Skywalker, when he made reference about us, meaning all of them. It really was. I mean, I think that's the greatest story that Star Wars tells with all the other type of fandom.
And then there are more of us.
It's always, and it's like, and that's where you, as the human being sitting in the chair, you just want to scream out loud because it's like, yes, we won. We're coming.
Yeah.
It was very I got a lot of Endgame vibes when, you know, they come through the portal from Wakanda to because the Rise of Skywalker came out after Endgame.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So Moff Gideon says that he has gotten Grogu's blood. So whatever cloning thing they're trying to do, if Gideon was telling the truth, I'm sure they're going to proceed with that. So my question is, what happened to Dr. Pershing?
They just did they just leave him on the ship? Is he with Boba? Did they kill him? Like, they didn't really explain that. And they also could have at least gone into, like, maybe they just let him go. Because we made a point that, I mean, he's probably not necessarily good nor bad. He just wants to do science.
Yeah, he's just a nerd.
He just wants to do science and, you know, either came from, like, an imperial family or just was like, I think I have better resources this way. I'm going to study biology of these little green creatures and try to grow my own in a petri dish. Because, like, he seems afraid of Gideon. And you see that in the siege.
Yeah, where he's like quivering as he's speaking in the hologram.
Yeah.
I am very intrigued, and I also am at a loss for where this whole thing is going to go for in the future. Obviously, Mandalore, you have to have that, or at least you should, you know, in something called The Mandalorian. I guess the whole connection in the future with the First Order. And what exactly did they use Grogu's blood for? I feel like they closed off one plot line with, like, Grogu finding the Jedi, you know, Luke. But you opened up, like, 3 more. So.
Well, I think that was the point.
I know. But there's just, like, there's a lot of points. And, like, you have to kind of focus on a couple at a time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been talking about with focus. And, like, focusing on, you know, you could still have subplots. And so I'll probably cut this. But, like, I'm a creative writing major, sort of. And, like, that's one thing that we've talked about in story writing is that you can have, like, multiple plots, but at some point you need to either close them or they need to converge. Mm-hmm. So with this, there's been a lot of, like, plot lines that have just kind of spread and they've become their own branches, but there's, like, if it's a tree, it's not getting the nutrition that it needs, and it's like a dead branch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Usually, like, this is more for books, so it is a bit different. But usually, like, in a single book, the main plot line of your story can go unanswered or, like, unsolved until the very end, like your last book. And there can be other plot enigmas in your book, but those little ones have to be solved by the time that one book ends.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't think The Mandalorian does a good job at that.
So far, anyway.
Yeah.
So it's very conflicting because, like, I know I should be grateful, like everybody else, who, you know, you have people like Star Wars Theory who does like a live stream, and something big like Luke shows up or Boba shows up, and he's just like in tears because it's so amazing. I don't know. Maybe it's just the time of year. Maybe it's just a me thing. But there are certain elements of it that just have me kind of rolling my eyes. I'm just like, what does this do?
No, we need something fresh. We need to start moving towards something fresh. Like I said, some of the fan service is warranted. I mean, I have great faith in the dynamic duo. Okay, and I believe they're going to do us all right. And I just want to know that Grogu is safe. That's all. That's all I want.
Maybe he just goes into exile. Maybe he goes to live on Dagobah and just lives a normal life.
Maybe.
But yeah, with like fresh stuff, like you've been playing Fallen Order. I finished, but that's a good example of something that's fresh, but also...
Yeah, because, like, as far as I can tell, like, it visits aspects that we've seen before, which is fine. Because, you know, in Clone Wars and Rebels, we went to Dathomir, and, you know, there's a whole...
Ilum and Kashyyyk.
Yeah, and, like, so we visit those planets, and, like, you know, we're familiar with them, which is nice, but, like, the characters and the whole plot of the game is different, which is what I like. So it's Star Wars, but it's new Star Wars.
Well, it's new, but it's old. So it is revisiting a concept that has been explored in the Clone Wars, and then in Rebels, the whole holocron, Children of the Force. But like it's, I think it's because of the era, and it really takes advantage of it being a different era.
Right.
Because it's like the rise of it's 5 years after the Jedi Purge. So the Republic is gone, the Empire reigns, but like it's not in its prime just yet. Whereas like Rebels, you're a good decade and a half, I think, by the time you get to that little story arc. But like in like villains though, like with the second sister so far, or the Inquisitors, like what do you think compared to someone like Gideon?
They're much better than Gideon, but I also think that's probably because they can actually use the Force. So like they're, yeah, like it's so like when they have like confrontations and fight scenes, like it's more intense than I think.
Well, I mean, just as like characters so far from what you know from.
Well, I haven't gone like too far into it. I think their backstories are a bit more interesting. The ninth sister, like we don't really get much backstory with her, but with Trilla, she was like a Jedi apprentice who was basically turned over by her master. So that, I think that's interesting. I like to know more, but we don't really have a backstory or a reason why Moff Gideon wants to do all this stuff. So it's kind of weird with Moff Gideon. I don't know how to say the right word.
It feels empty because there was like season 1 where it's like, that's Moff Gideon, and you're like, who's Moff Gideon? Even myself, I'm like, do I know Moff Gideon? You're like, Moff Gideon was executed for war crimes. Sorry, what?
Yeah, so we never really heard of him, and we don't even know why he wants the Empire to continue. And you know, my mom always says he's in this Darth Vader-esque suit, and you yourself thought he might be like a past Inquisitor.
A failed Inquisitor, maybe. He just
yeah.
had like those vibes, but I've been proven wrong so far.
I still say he's this tough guy, big guy wannabe, and he's not the guy on top.
Yeah, so I think we need a Moff Gideon backstory, either through visual or exposition. I'm just not sure why he's so keen on doing this work unless he's following someone else's orders and is like in his himself frightened of whoever is giving him his orders.
Hopefully we can explore that next season, because I was a little disappointed. Like it like kind of crescendoed up to this like big moment that he has the Darksaber and he's going to do this super intense fight, and you give him this really menacing kind of like shrieking theme.
His actions in the season 1 finale were much better and more, I think, villainous than his whole action in season 2. Because he's not really doing much. He's literally just standing, walking around, and talking in season 2. Yeah. Like, he doesn't actually get his hands dirty like he did in season 1.
Well, until the Darksaber duel. But that's kind of the only time.
You wonder how he even got it in the first place by how quickly Mando was able to defeat him.
Yeah, Mando, who's a gunslinger, handled a staff in close quarter combat very well. Mm-hmm. And I think we're supposed to infer that he's more of like a long range. Like, he can obviously hold his own in like a fist fight, but he's more of like a long range, not sniper, but just like, you know, he uses ammunition like guns. Is Moff Gideon himself even like, does he know how to sword fight basically? Like, because he just has a Darksaber.
It's hard to say because, I mean, he held up longer than I would have expected given his build up to that moment. Yet at the same time, you look at it and it's kind of sloppy. So, like you had said many episodes ago, that someone like Ahsoka would just demolish him in like a second. Mm-hmm. Like the magistrate, the magistrate would hold up better against Gideon than Gideon would anyone else.
Yeah, so I just, knowing that and seeing that, like, that might not be how they tried to do the scene. Maybe they tried to make it so that Moff Gideon was this big bad person, but it makes me wonder if he somehow got the Darksaber through, like, cheating, kind of.
Probably.
And maybe that's why Bo-Katan is so, like, angry that he got the saber from her. Because he did it dishonorably somehow.
You think he pulled an Ezra and just like took it out of her bedroom while she was sleeping?
Maybe not that, but maybe he did some like You okay?
No.
Maybe he did some like misdirection kind of thing where, because he has these like legions of stormtroopers and like, you know.
Or did he betray her? Like, these are the things that would have been nice to at least open up to this season and then lead into the third. So like the third, I have no idea how it's gonna go.
Too many questions, too many open doors.
Yeah.
And like normally, like sometimes that's a good thing, so you don't have certain expectations to either have them not lived up to or to be completely subverted. But like, it would be nice to have an idea. Like, you had an idea at the end of season 1,
right,
like of where it was gonna go. You had the whole Grogu was like a child to Din. But Din still has to complete his mission and bring the child to one of his kind, bring him back to the Jedi. Mm-hmm. With this, like, he's been reunited with the Jedi, and Gideon is knocked out cold. Turns out he's kind of a loser. And I don't know if I said it already, but, like, I've known people who are like Gideon, and I've hated every single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that feels like the reason why season 2 is having you jump from place to place, it's so they can introduce these characters and these themes solely to get you to watch the spin-offs that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I just...
This could have been the sacrifice season in terms of Mandalorian, in terms of getting us ready for the other spin-offs, which gives me a little spark of hope. That means that season 3 will get right back on target with the Mandalorian and the storyline that we're meant to see.
Yeah, I mean, Mando doesn't have a ship anymore,
right?
So he kind of has to be with Bo-Katan at the moment. Because we see at the end credits, Boba and Fennec are by themselves, so they left the group.
Well, they have their own motives because he's a scoundrel, he's a bounty hunter, and she's a mercenary, and they're two peas in a pod.
Yeah, so I think I'm hoping that this hopping around is done with, and now we're going to get more of like a linear storyline
Yeah.
in the next season.
I at least hope we have like a home base. So I mentioned last time that like Navarro was our home base. And this one, the closest thing we had to home base was the Razor Crest. And the Razor Crest was vaporized on Tython. So we don't exactly have a home to go to.
We should have known in the second episode, like it just immediately got destroyed. It's been destroyed this whole season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like in retrospect, it's really funny to play on. I just wish that we had like a planet or something.
Yeah, I think even the actual episodes could have been.
That's why I was hoping we would go to Mandalore this season and establish that as our roots. So I really hope we go to Mandalore next season.
Me too. Yeah, but I think the pacing of the episodes could have been more condensed together. Like at the end of the previous episode is when they should have gone and gotten like Bo-Katan and her people, and then start the finale episode like with them actually traveling to Moff Gideon's light cruiser, because then you have so much more time to actually like establish, you know, what's actually going on with Moff Gideon and, you know, the Darksaber and Grogu.
And then that time, and that kind of that would also have given us more time to see a big battle between everybody on the bridge, including the Dark Troopers. And then, like you said, then comes Luke Skywalker. And that is when you were like, oh my God, just when you think everybody's just going to die, including the baby, then comes your savior. Okay? That would have been incredibly impactful.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yes, you do want to see him fight like we got. And again, that's fan service. All I got to tell you, that is all we have been waiting for, is to see that powerful Luke Skywalker. And we got it. But maybe if we had more time, we could have seen the fight on the bridge. Plus, he would have come in, all the fighting as well, you know, killing off the Dark Troopers. Even at that point, that would have been incredible.
Because so far, there's been like no stakes.
Yeah.
The only two characters that have died that has been like impactful was Quill and IG-11.
Yeah.
Which we're at the end of.
I know.
The size. But like that showed that there was stakes, that people were dying, and nobody. And I mean, people don't have to die. So it's just like with the Last Jedi and people with Rose Tico, like, she should have died. No, she should have just been a better written character. She should have had a better purpose. She didn't have to die.
Yeah.
But like, you have to show that there's stakes.
Yeah, even through like the tone. Like the tone was just flat overall, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you
Like-
see a stormtrooper? Okay.
Like,
Well,
I was
you know they're gonna
hoping
die.
that like Din would face Gideon and lose. Like, I was hoping that like almost the roles of, you know, the rescuer and the captured kind of swap, because it would just give stakes or something along that line. Or even if they are in like this terrible situation, they're being smacked up by these Dark Troopers that are supposedly supposed to be like top tier droid soldiers, like the best thing you've seen since the commando droids. And then Skywalker comes, and then you have like this, either you have this standalone moment with Luke, or you have this moment where he kind of has his moment, and then they all fight together.
Because, you know, right now, we've talked offline about these robots. I mean, robots, they're like they're like the
Rock'em Sock'em
robots. Exactly.
They look the same, they move the same.
Same square fists.
Like,
I mean,
don't know if
come
that was
on.
purpose?
Like my childhood game. Oh my gosh, it was just ridiculous. But anyway, we're all digressing.
Yeah, I mean, they gave so much, like...
Hype.
Yeah, they hyped them up so much, and then they're destroyed. Like, something that this does that I don't
They're
like...
just like the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, but, like, they introduce something, like, hype it up, and then it's gone within, like, the snap of a finger. And I'm like, it would be interesting if you kept these, because if you do them well, they prove to be an actual problem that they have to get through. And it just seems like every conflict in this is very easily solved.
Erased. Yeah. Not so much solved, but eliminated and erased.
Arguably the only, like, Mando's the only one who's lost anything. He's lost his ship. He's lost his child. And I guess he's lost, like, a sense of himself or pride or identity.
Existence.
Or something, whatever you want to call it, like with him taking his helmet off and just kind of leaving behind his creed. That's also growth, but, like, no one
Well, you make
at
a
the end of the
point.
day, like there's not as much like he can get over all these things aside from Grogu. That's the only thing that I think is going to be hard for him to really grasp and get over.
Yeah, I mean, you make a point, like, you know, even when Grogu was taken originally by the Dark Troopers, like, there's a point where I was like, oh no, but then, like, I was like, well, it's gonna work out, obviously, because that's how the tone is.
Yeah.
So this whole season, I was never worried for anyone. Season 1, very worried. Very worried about everyone. I just think it's a weird flip-flop. Yeah, I kind of expected more based on who the writers and producers are. And who the directors are, because they have like amazing directors on this. So I feel like this is Disney sticking. I've already said this, but Disney like sticking their claws in. I'm hoping season 3, Disney backs off because they announced all the spin-offs they wanted. But yeah, I have no idea where this is gonna go at all. I will watch season 3 and I will hope for the best. But I was
going to go the way you think.
But I was just.
I have a bad feeling about it.
Oh yeah, I know these comments I've been making makes me sound like I don't enjoy this show. I do. I'm just a little bit frustrated. You know, I like overall. I do like The Mandalorian. I'm glad we have the show, and I'm glad that it's attempting to like reach out to really feel more like in the Star Wars universe instead of just like a space western. I do like that. I would like some cohesiveness. And like and some linearness in it.
I love Star Wars. I really do. I'm so unbelievably passionate about it.
He's literally an encyclopedia. He knows everything.
Yes, he does.
Well, not everything.
And I'm at this since the inception, and the knowledge you have just startles me.
Well, like to my point, I'm very passionate about Star Wars, as are a lot of fans. And so when things don't, and we hold certain expectations, I'm sure you can relate. It's like being a parent. It's your child. You expect them to excel above and beyond. You want to give them the galaxy. And then sometimes you're just disappointed. And you're like, where did I go wrong? What did I do? Did I do something wrong?
What did I do to deserve this?
Exactly. So it's not that I hate Star Wars or that I'm a terrible, mean and grumpy person. Although I am a mean and grumpy person, but like I expect a lot for it, and I want it to do well.
Yeah.
But we will see.
Well, I've gone over all my points. Overall, a little bit disappointed. I am hopeful and excited for what's to come. Do you guys have any last minute things you want to say?
No, I just want to thank you for having me as your guest. It was a great honor, and I'm very proud of both of you. You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you. Thanks for being a guest.
My pleasure.
Well, the whole Mandalorian series has been reeled in. This has sort of been like a season 1 of my podcast. So if you've been staying with me, thank you. If you're tuning in for the first time, also thank you. Depending on these next couple months, this podcast will probably be very Marvel as well as Pixar oriented, because I know Pixar on Christmas has a new movie coming out. I'm excited. Wonder Woman's also coming out, I think, on Christmas.
Which we can watch, because I got that subscription.
Yes. I need to watch the first one. I know.
Oh my god.
I know.
And we can of course go back and trail on some classics.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for listening, guys, and please join me next time.
Happy New Year.
And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. And if you don't celebrate anything, Happy Winter.